And we're back, and we just finished watching Hearts Beat Loud from 2018, starring Nick Offerman and Kiersey Clemens. It's the story about a father who is in the middle of kind of a huge change in his life. His daughter is going off to college. He's on the brink of losing... His daughter Sam is about to go to college on the other side of the country, and he's about to lose his business. Nick Offerman does a really, really stellar job of conveying this man who's kind of at a crossroads, but at the same time seems to take joy. That was one thing that was interesting. Spoilers for people that haven't seen it. His wife was killed in was a bicyclist and cyclist. Sorry, that's right, cyclist, and I guess was killed.
Yeah.
Which is not by the bike, but she was killed on her bike. I suppose.
Riding her bike, yes.
Which is revealed in part of the movie, and yet he still perseveres, which I think was another nice thing about his character. He was my favorite character, I think, in the movie.
Yeah, I agree. It was interesting seeing Ron Swanson in a completely different type of role.
Very nuanced, very layered, very vulnerable, which is something that Ron Swanson is not.
Yes. And I mean, I think he did a great job. It was interesting seeing the problems that he had. When you think, I guess for me, I could sort of identify with it a little bit because at some point these girls are going to leave.
Yes.
And I would like to have something that we both love, to have that sort of thing together. And I could see how it would be immensely painful to basically have to let go of that. And he seemed to, Ron Swanson's character, Nick Offerman's character, Frank
Fisher.
He definitely had that with his daughter, but you could see she was growing up and moving away from that. I think she's...
Childish life.
It wasn't really childish. It was just the daughter had dreams beyond music. The whole family shared this intense passion for music.
Even the grandmother played lovelily by Blythe Danner. Yeah. Is that even a word? Lovelily? It is late.
Yeah.
Tongue-tied. Whoa.
But they all shared this love of music, and he passed that on to his daughter. And you could see that she still had it in her. It was to the point where she, even during the day, she would just songwrite poems and whatnot. And but you could see she was driven to something else as well. More, I guess. A more practical.
This is true too.
A more practical career. She wanted to become a doctor and go to medical school at across the country in UCLA. This story takes place in Red Hook, Brooklyn.
Another nice thing about the movie, I think, was that the fact that you get to see parts of Brooklyn again.
Yeah, and which I miss.
Yes. Yeah. It's always, I think we've mentioned this before, as Brooklyn-born people, it's always nice to see our hometown, our home state, or hometown represented in the movies. And Red Hook is way lovelier in 2018 than it was in the 70s and 80s when we were growing up. So it's a completely different locale, if you will.
Yeah, he must have been living there for a long time, because there's no way on God's green earth that
he could afford that
a man
massive
could afford
apartment.
That beautiful big apartment. And while his job is running a record store that nobody goes into, and he basically doesn't seem too interested in selling anything either. So, yeah. Little fantasy there.
Gee, what was your favorite part of the story?
Did you have a favorite
Did you have a favorite part?
Did you even enjoy the movie?
Did you like it?
It was good. It wasn't my favorite movie ever.
Okay. That's fair. What did you like about it?
I like their bond as a father and daughter.
That was really well done, I think, in the story. Yeah. It was interesting because you see like just everyday strife and conflict, but also the underlying love that they had for each other. One of my favorite scenes in the movie was towards the end when she turns to him and says, "What if I don't go?" And you could see in his eyes that it's what he would have wanted, but he knew in his heart of hearts, like you said, that it wasn't what she wanted. If she was going to stay, it would have been for the wrong reasons. And she may not have regretted it in that moment, but she eventually would have regretted it. And nobody wants to be the reason for that regret.
Yeah. She would have been staying for other people more than for herself. More than staying for herself.
Exactly.
And that's like another thing that I thought was nice about his performance or his character was that you could see it's killing him.
Sure.
That this is going away, and something happens in the film where it's sort of like he's got this new chance at the life that he wished he could have had, I guess, with his wife, but now through his daughter, not in a creepy way, but just in the fact that their love of music was creating something greater than he had ever experienced before. Clearly his daughter was torn, and it was nice in a movie where they didn't try and crank up the drama where they end up like screaming at each other like, "You gotta let me go, you're destroying." None of that.
I hate you.
Yeah, you never got that drama. You got the impression that he loved her. He just loved her more than anything. And even though it really
wrecked him to have
hurt his heart. Yes, hurt his heart. He even said it himself. He said she's the adult in this relationship now. She's grown up. She's outgrown me, and that
was bittersweet.
That was sweet.
Yeah. Leslie, did you have a favorite part in this movie, Olive G? No.
So
did you enjoy it at all? You rolled around on the carpet a lot. I don't think you paid much attention.
Yeah, classic Olive.
Classic Olive.
I feel like this is with Lady Bird too.
Well, you know what? It's funny that you mentioned that because I think as I was watching it, this is kind of a slice of life movie. I actually wanted to do Tokyo Story with you guys as a slice of life because I saw it in film school and it is one of my favorite movies. I haven't seen it very much since film school and college, but the fact that it has stayed with me 30 plus years is a testament to what great storytelling that movie is all about. I highly recommend it. If you have HBO Max, check it out. It's an amazing film. I will definitely check it out within the next couple of weeks. It's definitely on my list of to watch. But getting back to this story, it's funny that you mentioned that, Olive, about Lady Bird, because we had seen it and I was very ambivalent about it. And again, I don't dislike Lady Bird. I think the thing that propels that movie to the top are the stellar performances by the actors. I found the script kind of weak. That's just me. But I feel like what really put that film over into a better number rating for me, at least, was the performances by the actors. And in this movie, you kind of have both. I mean, it's still not the greatest script ever written, but there's definitely more here.
There's a more cohesive storyline going through, and there are similarities in the fact that the daughter wants to go away to school,
right?
And the parent isn't 100% on board with it. Whereas in Lady Bird, the mother was pretty dead set against it. She
right, for whatever
she
reason.
Seemed to be actively
sabotaging any kind of,
and campaigning for this not to happen. Whereas in this, the Frank was definitely accepting of the fact that this is going to happen, and I got to make it happen, to the point where he gives up his business, gives up on his second chance at a dream.
Yeah. So this, I mean, it's funny because as we were watching it, I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? This to me is a better slice of life movie, and it didn't have any sensational dialogue or over the top instances of storytelling.
I wouldn't really say it's a better slice of life movie. I just think it's a more entertaining slice of life movie. The problem I had
You don't think that okay.
The problem let me finish. The problem I had with Lady Bird was that it was a very true slice of life movie, and the fact that life isn't, like I think I said in the review, life isn't full of witty banter and great punchlines and stuff like that. It's basically just a series of random events that happen one after the other, and Lady Bird pretty much conveyed that. The only through line was, I want to go away to school.
I hate Sacramento.
I hate Sacramento. I want to go away to school. But outside of that, all the other little stories that were happening in it, they could have jettisoned some or added totally different ones. It really wouldn't have changed anything. Whereas in this, there was like an actual, I guess, more blatant attempt at a cohesive story. Like, there wasn't anything going on in this movie that I felt, they could have just gotten rid of that whole part. I mean, each character played a part. They helped dig through the layers of these characters. They helped expose the layers of these characters. They did it in a way that propelled the story forward. Whereas in Lady Bird, it was more like, okay, this happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. This happened. Okay. Moving on. And that was it.
Okay. I still feel like, as far as slice of life, I think this was done a little bit better. I mean, that's just my opinion. It's
like
not,
I said, I feel it was more entertaining.
It was more entertaining.
But if you're going for accurate, then I think Lady Bird is a more accurate slice of life.
Sure. Life is messy and it's whatever.
Life is messy. It's very rarely coherent.
Sure.
Things don't generally have to propel the other things. There's no plot.
Right.
It's just this is what happens and deal with it.
Right. Well, I think the other thing here was that it was very charming. I think this movie. It was very, very charming. Like, even the secondary players, like you have a marquee actress like Blythe Danner, who's had a long film trajectory. She plays Frank's mom, who has a little bit of a sticky finger issue going on with her.
You know what? If there was one thing that could have been jettisoned that wouldn't have affected the story, it would have been
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She really,
I mean, it didn't really add or take away from the story.
Yeah.
But it was nice that she also I liked the scene where her and Sam are talking, and she's talking about how she met her husband, who was Sam's grandfather, and how that too, she would go to the clubs to sing. So here you got a tapestry of the Fisher family and how music has been a huge, I guess, component of their lives. It was a big deal to the mother, who probably passed that on to her son, who hooks up with a woman, Danielle, who is also passionate about music. They said that they were in a band together. They obviously instilled that into their daughter, who also liked music a lot as a child and grew up to continue that love of music. She would have her weekly jam sessions with the father.
I thought it was like daily.
What?
I thought it was daily.
I don't think it was daily.
No, I think it was more weekly.
Yeah, I think it was more weekly. Yeah, I don't think that's sustainable daily.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would have been maddening.
I mean, unless it's like teeth brushing, deodorant wearing. I mean, certain things you can do on a daily basis, eating, but not jam session. What else? Well, you brought up an interesting point. Like, the storyline with Blythe Danner could have been.
Yeah, I feel like that could have been jettisoned, or you know what? It served a minor purpose in what you just said. Mm-hmm. That it showed a history of the family and how music was like that deeply entrenched in their family. But
what about Ted Danson's character?
Ted Danson's character to me, it just helped you learn a little bit more about Frank's personality and whatnot.
What about Leslie, the Toni Collette character?
Leslie, to me, sort of, I guess, she was, I guess, a chance for Frank to move on without his daughter.
Right.
And I think the reason why that kind of went a little sour there for a bit was because his daughter's like, this isn't going to happen. We're not going to make a record deal. We're not going to go on tour. I'm going in a week to UCLA and that's it. And that's sort of like sent him off to the point where he remembered, oh, I saw her and she was seeing that other, or she was going into some restaurant with that other guy.
I think she was going into the bar with Ryan.
I don't know. I don't remember where they were going, but that also pushed him a little bit into a darker place. And like I said, to me, she was a possible way for him to move on in his own way without his daughter.
Right. I agree. I think his wife died in what year? 2006?
I forgot what it said on the little...
I forgot what it said on the little placard, but I guess long enough that it's maybe time for him to move on. I mean, obviously there's no statute of limitation on grief and mourning, but I
think it was more than 10 years.
Yeah, you know? I think with his daughter leaving, I think it was fair that if he wanted to pursue a relationship, to have companionship, he was well within his right to, I guess, go in that direction. What did you think of the Toni Collette character?
I mean, I thought she did a good job. She always does a good job.
She's great. She's always fun to watch.
I sensed that you were getting a little upset with her, but I honestly didn't see a reason why.
You know what? I just couldn't understand. Was she interested in him? Was she not interested in him? Like it just wasn't. I don't know. It just wasn't clear. Yeah, I was like, what is her intention here?
In the beginning, the way it seemed to me was she was more interested in him than he was in her. But then they went out, and clearly there was a spark. There was a spark there, but there was no commitment there or anything.
Sure.
So to say, like, oh, she's leading him on or anything like that is very premature.
I didn't say she's leading him on.
Either way, to me, it just seemed like they were going out and seeing if there was anything there. Mm-hmm. There was no commitment to anything there. It was just, that's just how it was. And then during the date, that other guy shows up and says hi. And that sort of like puts a damper on things.
Right. The mood definitely changed.
Changed. And then he sees her walk into a restaurant with I think it was the bar. The guy or the bar. I don't know where they just
restaurant, whatever.
They didn't show the front of the place. They just showed a door opening and the two of them going in.
I thought I saw the bar sign.
And
I think he was going for his afternoon drink, and then he noticed that she was going in there.
Regardless of where they were going, there was no commitment there or anything like that. And to get upset with her about that or anything, that was...
I wasn't upset with her. I was not clear about... I don't understand what's happening now. Because it seemed like in the beginning, she was very into him. She seemed very into him. They go out to hang out, which then it seems like it turns into a date. She kisses him. He doesn't kiss her. She apologizes. He's like, it's fine. He obviously is on board with being kissed by her. So they are now both giving off, I guess, the signals that this is okay to green light. They're at the bar. They're continuing their date. Mm-hmm. And then Ryan comes and pretty much changes that whole dynamic. Mm-hmm. Which was very weird to watch. And then it was, I don't know. Like, you can't really tell, right? I mean, I don't know what the writer's intention was there. If there was an intention, maybe it was just platonic. There's that scene where he gets himself drunk and he comes to her door at apparently an ungodly hour, wakes her up
Yeah.
and is
Not,
trying to
not
get
the, not the nicest.
not the
or
nicest, not
trying
being
to
a gentleman.
demanding clarification
Right,
on their
right,
relationship,
right.
which
which is very high school behavior.
yeah. But
So-
but at that point, that was also the point where he had the blowout with his daughter.
Right. So
He
there's
realizes
a
that
culmination of stuff.
he realizes basically his dream is it's over. A lot of bad stuff pushing him into a darker place. And then on top of that, after embarrassing himself like that, he's got to embarrass himself again to ask her for money.
bail money. Yeah, for the mother.
For the mother. So he's not really in the best spot at that point in the film.
Sure.
And she clearly does have affection for him because she could have basically just been like, you know what, go to hell.
True.
Yeah.
True.
And she was and you know what? I think that also bothered him a lot when she introduces him to
Ryan as a
Ryan
friend.
guy. She says,
Oh, he's his
"I'm a
tenant."
friend," and then she says, "Oh, he's my tenant," and he has to say, "Yeah, she's my landlady,"
Yeah.
which is just weird.
Weird. Yeah. Agreed.
So, yeah, that kind of threw a big monkey wrench in what
That
seemed
date.
to be
A nice date.
Yeah. Yeah, that slammed the brakes on that pretty hard. What else you got?
I guess, since this is the last Friday of June, which is technically Pride Month, I picked this movie because there's also a relationship between the Sam character and what was the girlfriend's name? Rose character. What did you think about that?
I thought that was fine. I mean, I don't see how this would really be considered Pride movie or whatever because it was really such a.
I think because they're lesbian.
Yes, obviously because they're lesbians, but still, it was such a minor aspect of the story.
Sure, but it's nice
it didn't really have much of a bearing on the relationship with the father
or the entire story.
Like
itself.
when you initially described this film to me, I thought that was going to be
More
either a source of conflict or something, but
no,
he had zero problems with it. He knew about his daughter's orientation the entire time. He had no issues with it whatsoever, and he was super happy that she found somebody that cared for her.
Right.
And it wasn't really.
I mean, it's not like about big.
It's not like overcoming prejudice or adversity or anything like that.
No.
It was.
But it's nice that there's kind of a nod there because representation matters, and having stories told from that vantage point is important. I think when people see that, they feel validated, and I think that's important, especially in this day and age. And not only is it, she's in a same-sex relationship with someone, she's also a person of color.
True. Yeah.
So I think that added another.
Because her mom was also a person of color.
Right, her mother was a woman of color. So I think that also, I was interested in that side of the story. It was interesting to see how she viewed the world, how she kind of fit into it, how all of that, plus I guess her personal history kind of molds and shapes her to who she is. I think it's got to be interesting to grow up as a mixed race kid, I guess, because
Well, I mean, the stigma of that has died.
Sure.
Immensely. I mean,
No.
it's not like when our parents were around and
right,
that,
which was a huge deal.
They'd say terrible things like, "Oh, never get involved with somebody of another race because you're dooming your child to be hated by both," or some terrible nonsense like that.
Yeah.
It's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
both the kids have gone
both
down.
kids have jettisoned.
But I think it's another movie that I'd like us to review is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, because that's from the 60s, and that's also that relationship between a black man and a white woman, and back then it was a huge deal. So
Yeah.
it was, I think the other nice component about this story was that it had diversity in it. It had inclusion. All the characters were given love freely. There wasn't any conflict there. I think Nick Offerman's character, Frank, does a great job of just being a good, decent man and a good, decent father.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard. It's hard to raise girls. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not hard to raise boys, but I think it's hard to raise girls, especially when you're a widow, especially when you may have issues of race and sexual orientation to have to grapple with as well.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, it's scary enough raising a child,
right?
But
then when you
as
have
a father,
all these other things going on,
when you think about raising a daughter, you're automatically thinking of the world's full of nasty people, and then on top of that, now you're adding race into it. That adds another
uglier
group of nasty people,
right?
And then you add the sexual orientation into it, and that adds another group of nasty people
who feel the need to say something or
judge or just do something horrible,
right?
So
luckily that wasn't the case here.
Yeah, this wasn't that kind of movie.
This wasn't that kind of movie, but still it was.
This is more of just a father-daughter relationship,
right?
And it was sweet.
It was sweet, yes. So I see that your daughters have completely lost focus here, so we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
Trying to find my cones.
G, 1 to 10. What would you give this movie?
You could be honest. Don't feel you gotta pump.
Yeah,
it
you
up
don't have to like it or
I'd give it a 7.
7. All right.
Interesting. My number 2 is a 7. I think it wasn't the greatest thing ever. It's not The Raid, but it's not. It wasn't bad. I think the performances were very, very, very well done. All the characters were super likable. These are all people that I would enjoy being friends with.
Yeah, nobody was irritating.
No, no one.
Everybody seemed. They were a good character. You grew to care about the characters. I mean, they didn't really like it wasn't like, oh my god, wow, this is the best ever. But it was a sweet story, and it's always nice seeing a story about a father who cares about his kids. A lot of times, films are not really that great when it comes to the father or the parent in general. It's always, why you're trying to control me?
Yes,
you
yes.
ruined my life. Remember you?
Yes.
And you made me wear those pants to school, and now I'm deeply traumatized.
Yes, and I feel like you, as a father of daughters, right? So you always want to have that relationship. And I've told the kids before that I didn't have the best relationship with my mother, so I strive very, very hard to try not to make the same mistakes. I mean, obviously mistakes will be made, but...
So I would also give it a 7.
Olive G, 1 to 10. What do you give this movie?
You can be honest.
You can be honest.
I'm trying to think.
Was it if 5 was a film that you didn't care about at all? Was it above 5 or below 5?
5.
It was a 5. You just
a
didn't
5.
care
All
either
right.
way. Okay, there you go. 5 and 3 7s.
Hearts Beat Loud. It's
on Hulu.
It's on Hulu. It's currently streaming on Hulu. I didn't check out the Parent's Guide, but
It's usually hilarious.
which is usually hilarious. I should have checked it out. But I'm assuming this is PG-13. There wasn't any...
It was PG-13. There was some smooching going on.
There was some smooching between the two girl characters. There's no profanity as far as I remember.
Yeah, they may have dropped an S-bomb.
Maybe, yes, I think you're right. I think there might have been 1 or 2 curse words.
Yeah, they didn't meet the quota.
Yeah. I mean...
They pushed it into R territory.
I guess you could watch it with your 12-year-old and up.
Yeah.
And Jeff Tweedy makes a quick appearance, which I was very happy to see.
What was he again?
And he was the guy that came into the record store that was like, I couldn't stay, but I really like the name of that band. What is going on with you?
You're 12-year-old if they're gay or lesbian.
Or if they're not.
Or if they're not. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or bisexual.
Or
Okay.
straight.
All right.
All right.
So-
I'm glad that you are being inclusive, Olive, in your...
I'm tired and hot.
All right,
well,
you know what? It's
It's
time to
time
get
to brush
ready
your
for
teeth
bed.
and go to bed, and that means it's time for us to say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.